welcome to Those Two Gaming Guys, a video game podcast. This is episode 1. You're listening to Fred and I talk consoles this week. Now, we've got a bunch of topics to cover here. Let's just jump right in. Favorite consoles?
Well, I'd probably have to say, and I thought about this because there's a lot of consoles out there that I'm like, yeah, I really like these consoles. This is good. But I'd say it's either the PS3 or the Xbox 360, only because we were with them for so long. I mean, if you think about it, that was like the longest generation that I've ever been through.
Yes.
I mean, that was like 10 years or so. If you think about it, you had you had the Cube, and then you had the 64, and then you had the Super NES. But those were all roughly close together. You had the PS, and then the PS2 right behind it, and then right behind that was the PS3. Same with Xbox. It just there were so many consoles in a short period of time, and then there was that huge drought where it was Sony and Xbox, and they only had those two consoles, and that was it. I mean, you either had one of those two, or you weren't playing anything, or you're playing on your PS2 still. You know what I mean? That was about it. I mean,
Right.
there wasn't a whole lot of anything. I don't know anybody who kept an Xbox or played an Xbox after the 360 came out. There were some people who did PS2 for a while after the PS3 came out. I was one of those people. I was on the PS2 for a little while, had an Xbox 360, and then switched over when MAG came out. And really, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's what game you want to play on what console and what exclusivity they have. That dictates what you're going to be on, basically.
Right.
As far as great favorite console, it'd definitely be those two. I mean, you played Xbox 360 with me when PSU came out. We were on that for God only knows how long. We had the GameCube. We were on PSO there. We had the Dreamcast, and I mean that was an awesome system. And I kind of wished they did more with that, but they didn't. I know I was reading an article, and apparently Sega, the CEO of Sega, was trying to apologize for the Dreamcast because they feel that they really screwed up when they did that. And I don't know if they screwed up. I think they just they didn't do enough with it.
Well, not to digress too much, but with the Dreamcast, at the time we didn't know because the internet, as it is even was 10 years ago, didn't exist in the era of the Dreamcast.
Sure.
But going back and researching and looking at it, that time in the 90s where they went from the Genesis to the new Genesis model to the Sega CD to the 32X and then over to the Saturn, and then the Dreamcast was meant to apologize and fix all of those problems, but it came out late.
Right.
And by the right after it came out, the PS2 came out, and boom, that was that, man. The PS2 was the death knell in the and the nail in the coffin, so to speak.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, so your favorite consoles are the PS3 and the
360. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you know me, I wasn't really into console gaming until I met you, and then I had the 64, and then I did the Cube, and then I did the PS.
Right.
And really, I mean, as far as coming into its own, I would say those were the two consoles where I was like, there was a lot of good games. There was a lot of just, I don't know, substance there, I guess is the best thing. And like I said, there's the consoles that we were around for a solid 10 years. You know what I mean? I mean, really, the 64 and the Cube were almost 2 years apart, maybe 3 at most.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
Like that. Yeah, I mean.
Oh no! Wait! The 64 came out in '96, I think, and the Cube came out in, I want to say 2000 or 2001. I don't remember. And I'd have to go back and look at it. Yeah, I can do that while we're discussing.
Yeah. I mean, those would be them. I mean, really, because I mean, if you look at the games for those two consoles, and the games were there. They were a lot of fun. They didn't try to do too much as far as, here's a lot of, video, or here's a lot of stuff you can do besides gaming on your console. You know what I mean? They were very gaming oriented. I know Xbox 360 started to go into getting, what is it? That's when they started doing a lot more with their live system, towards the end, where they wanted to do TV, they wanted to do this, they wanted to do that.
Right.
And that towards the end, yeah, it kind of got out of hand. But I don't know if they've learned their lesson with the current generation or not, but we'll see on that one. I don't want to get into another subject there on that, but
right.
Yeah,
just real quick, I don't know if you
what's
saw
up?
when I put it on the screen.
Yeah, I kind of glanced at it.
North America GameCube, November 18th, 01. So there you go. So it's been a while.
4 years. Yeah. Well,
yeah. I think it was 4 years. I remember somebody on YouTube. I was watching one of their video game videos, and they had mentioned that as well. I think what was that? 90. Crap! I don't remember.
Okay.
I just remember a real quick funny story is the GameCube. We went out. We were living together.
Yep.
And we had gone out to buy each other Christmas gifts. And we went to Target, and we ended up buying each other a GameCube without knowing it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what we did.
That was one of the funniest things that's ever happened, like in our friendship over the entire 20 something years. It's like you went off in one direction, I went off in the other, and then we converged at the end. We're like, oh, here you go. Oh, shit! Because we could have just went. We could have went and did that for ourselves like a month earlier. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And been playing, but okay. So you're sticking with, or you say it's the 360 and the PS3?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, real quick on that before I give my favorites, the generational cycle, last generation, it still drives me nuts to this day.
Really?
What was it? Yeah, the PS3 came out in 06. I didn't get mine until 08 because I'd lost my job, so I had a rough 9 months after I lost my job way back then.
Yep.
And then I got a 360 shortly after I got my PS3. I think it was just a couple of months after. So it was in early 08 that I picked both up.
Right.
And then the generation just dragged on for me though.
I was saying, towards the end.
I've been playing. Right. Well, you said you weren't really a console gamer until you and I became friends.
Right.
I've been playing console since Atari. The Atari 2600 came out.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't back in those days. We didn't have the traditional console cycle. There was just the Atari.
Right.
And then you got the Atari 5200, the Atari 7800, and then ColecoVision and all that. But most of us average or poor kids had the Atari 2600. And that was great. Or if you were really lucky, you had Intellivision, which was awful.
I had a friend who had Intellivision.
Yeah, the controllers were awful. But anyway, for 30 plus years, I had grown, or 20, at least 20 years at the time, I had grown accustomed to the 4 or 5 year cycle, or 5 year release cycle. So every 3.5 or 4 years at E3, or at least online before E3 turned into what it is now, you get that, coming in the fall of,
right,
96 or whatever, and and then the console last generation, it still drives me fucking nuts, and I fear for this generation, although we'll get to that later. I felt like those consoles ran their course. The Xbox 360 than the PS3, at least I enjoyed it more myself. The online was better. All that stuff was better. I think the better games last generation for me were on the PS3, but I put in more hours on the Xbox.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we put in PSU what?
Right.
1,200 hours.
Yeah. At least 1,000 hours each. That's easy to do. But I don't know. I thought that the generation just should have concluded probably in I don't know, Like, when did this one start? 2013, 2012, if you count the Wii U. So
Something like that, yeah.
let's say 2013 because the Wii U is a piece of shit.
Yeah, let's not count the Wii U.
But so 2013 for the Xbox One and the PS4. I thought those should have come out a couple of years earlier. And I know that there was, you may remember on IGN and all the other networks and channels, people were talking. Has it been too long? Are they hurting the industry? And
right,
obviously not. They're all doing great, except for Nintendo. But the two major console publishers are doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite console of all time, I thought about it and thought about it. I'm gonna have to go with the NES.
Okay.
And I'm not going to assert that that's the greatest console,
right.
like in terms of tech and, but I'm looking at it partly from nostalgia because that was my first, like, the Atari was the Atari. That was my first hardcore gaming experience.
Mm-hmm.
I had Zelda,
mm-hmm.
Metroid, well, now it's Dragon Quest, or it always was, but in those days it was called Dragon Warrior. And Mega Man, obviously, 1, 2, 3, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Had all that stuff. Like, I played those games, like, in my formative years. You know what I mean? And, like, I pretty much raised myself. So, I had my music and my games.
Right.
And the games, I didn't play guitar well in those days. So, my games were it. That was the thing.
Right.
But I also say it's the NES because of what it did for the industry. Without the Nintendo NES, I don't think the industry exists as it does today.
I could see that. Yeah, sure.
I definitely think that there would be video games, and somebody else may have stepped in and
PC.
There may be a bigger.
PC. It'd be bigger PC. Yeah.
Yeah.
If consoles never came about.
Yeah, there may be another brain out there with a universe in it that has, where the NES never came out and
the
PC world exploded. Maybe Commodore stepped up, and you know what I mean.
Commodore.
Or like the Apple IIe. You know what I mean? Those things. Those
evolved. Oregon Trail, dude. Oregon Trail all the way, man.
Dude, nothing used to beat running over sheep in the 4th grade in that game, like on purpose.
Yeah.
In math class.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like I feel like the NES took the industry in it.
Mm-hmm.
If you do your research, that everyone associates Atari with only really happened in the United States. It only happened here. Everywhere else, the video game industry was okay or was coming back around. But here, the NES, and for kids like us at the time, the NES brought something new and something that blew Atari and ColecoVision and Intellivision and all that stuff out of the water, like graphics, sound. And those were the first games, too, that I ever played at home that had endings, like Atari games didn't end. Or if they did, the few games that did end, like Pitfall, if you could beat Pitfall, the screen would just flash.
You could beat
the screen would just flash. A few of my friends could. I never could. I was terrible at that. But yeah, outside of maybe 1 or 2 games, and there was a Smurf game on the Atari 2600 that I used to love too. And when you would beat it, you had to jump over that cat and Gargamel, and then it would just start over. So there was no really end.
Right.
It was just this cyclic thing where it was like, okay, it gets a little bit harder, it gets a little bit faster. But like the NES had obviously had games like that. But like right out of the gate, man, you had Super Mario Brothers, and that was arcade style at home. Like I had never seen that before. You had even though it's kind of lame looking back on it, we had Gyromite with Rob. You know what I mean?
Right.
We had Wrecking Crew. Like they were in those days. Like nowadays, Nintendo does those things, and everyone's like, "Oh, gimmick," and that's the truth. But when the tech wasn't there, and Nintendo put out Rob and the Zapper and even that shitty Power Glove that everyone makes fun of, like that was.
That's because they made a movie.
Well, yeah, The Wizard, but like that kind of shit didn't exist. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now you have, even though nobody uses it, you have PlayStation Move, you have Kinect. We had motion controls with Nintendo. Those came and went.
Right.
Like that stuff's not stupid now, but
You could say
like,
Nintendo did virtual reality
right.
first. They didn't do
Yeah,
it
in a way.
No, they did.
And,
They had the remember they had
well,
the
yeah,
headset,
yeah.
Ridge
We'll
Rider.
get wait a minute. Hold that thought because we'll get to that piece of shit soon enough. But like just to wrap it up, my favorite is the NES. I feel like it transformed the industry, at least in America. I have some of the best memories of all my entire career or life spent playing video games
Right.
on that console, and on other consoles too of the time. But like the NES is like that's my favorite console
Okay.
of all time. I wouldn't argue that it was the best by any stretch.
Right.
And that can be we may do that on another podcast. And I'll reserve my opinion on that for now. But mine's the NES. Runner up. I was trying to pick a runner up. I want to say the PS2 for like close runner up.
PS2 is a good system, yeah.
Because I have a lot of good memories playing with you on there.
Mm-hmm.
It really took the energy that the PS1 had, and it not only ran with it and capitalized on it, but it took everything that was fucking awesome about the PS1 and then added on to it. It's not like today where even Sony and Microsoft are guilty of it to some degree. They're not as egregious as Nintendo is, but even with newer consoles, it's you get that. Well, we took that out and now here's this, or there's none of this anymore. Now you get all of this, and it's like the PS2 didn't do that. It was like
here's more
massive. Yeah, it was massively more impressive than the PS1 graphically, sound wise. The size of the games was enormous because there was no DSL. DLC to break the game up, and so when you got a game, you got a game. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Even the platformers were 40 hours, and now they're 6 to 10.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like the PS2 did a lot of what the NES did for the 80s.
Sure.
The PS2 did for the 90s and the early, the turn of the millennium. But yeah, those are my top two. NES number one, and PS2 would be a runner-up.
Okay.
I mean, fuck, we had Final Fantasy X. We had I played everything on the PS2.
Yeah.
Like, there were very few games that I didn't, that I.
That's true.
At least in the genres that I was interested in, didn't play.
Yeah.
If I didn't own it, you owned it. We swapped games or whatever. So okay. So you're going with PS3 and 360, and I'm going with the NES. And then runner-up for me is PS2.
Sure.
Okay. So, if anybody has any wants to chime in on that, you can leave comments on our YouTube channel here.
Yeah.
Next topic.
Mm-hmm.
Those were our favorite consoles. What's the greatest console of all time? Now, like, I know we went over these questions before the show, but like when I wrote the question down, I was thinking in terms of technical prowess, the leap over the previous generation. Like just using the PlayStation as an example, is the PS2 greater than the PS3?
Oh yeah.
In terms of technical ability, or even now we can go modern PS3 to PS4.
No. Yeah.
I love my PS4. Don't get me wrong, but I know a lot of people will give me shit for it, but I think it's one of the most disappointing consoles I've ever seen. Like for my money.
Yeah, well,
we
won't get into that right now, but
okay, right. So what are you gonna go with? What do you think is the greatest console of all times? In terms of legacy, impact, being a game changer, its library, and its technical prowess.
Oh man, I have to change my answer then if you're going on that. Only because I was thinking the PS3, but if you're talking technical prowess and things that it did, I'd almost say you'd have to go with the 360. Only because if you look at what they did as far as look at all the things that the PS3 and the PS4 copied just from Xbox 360. There was party chat. You could chat within while somebody was playing another game. You could
Xbox
join.
Live.
Yeah, Xbox Live was huge when it first
Yep.
came out, and a lot of the things that it took and let you do were just massive compared to Sony, and they barely had PlayStation Network. It was barely a thing. It was like, yeah, you can play some shooters online, but you really can't have anything but maybe the chat support that the game supplied, and then that was it. And that was one thing that everyone talked about with the PS3 and the PS2 was that there's no vocal chat. Like the PS2 3 vocal chat was non-existent. You had to have a keyboard, otherwise you weren't talking to anybody. PS3 only
you're
had
pretty much screwed.
Yeah, PS3 only had in-game chat, and that was if the game had it, you had it. If not, well, yeah. A lot of people went with their PC, and they'd have their PC sitting next to them, and they'd be on a Skype call or this, that, and the other. I think we did that once or twice. I can't remember just when we did it. But the 360 had, they had all of that other stuff where, they had the chat through keyboard, text chat, text messages and stuff. They had the party chat where you could just jump in and party chat with people no matter what game they were on. And it was just a much better social experience, if you will, overall, when it came to the gaming. So if you want to talk about technological leaps and what system over another system would have been better, then you'd have to go with the 360, with a close runner-up being to what you just mentioned, probably the PS1 to PS2, only because if you look at what they did technologically between those two leaps, they were huge. The PS didn't have any type of online gaming, and then the PS2 had online gaming. They did, a lot of stuff. Now, granted, they messed up with a lot of the things as far as their live system, but as far as the system to system, they took a huge leap, and they did, leaps and bounds over what the PlayStation itself could do. If you look at, the best case in point for the PS2 is looking at Final Fantasy. Which one was it? Why is my brain go? 11.
10? 11.
No, 11. 11. The online one that was on PS2.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a huge thing. I got a PS2 simply to play that. And granted, I wasn't able to play it very long because that was when, and it still is, but that was when subscription-based games were huge, and who had $15 a month, and it got to a point where you felt like, well, if I didn't play, you weren't getting your money's worth, and then you felt like you couldn't play anything else because you had to play this one game because you were paying for it.
Right.
And I've never got over that feeling, and I probably never will. Every once in a while, I'll go back to a subscription-based game, for a month or two, just to kind of, oh yeah, blah, 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 it was great. But then I get back to that feeling of, well, if I don't jump on that game, then I feel like I wasted money.
Right.
So as far as that goes, they need to figure that out. But if you're talking technological leaps, then yeah, 360. Xbox to Xbox 360, and then definitely PS1 to PS2. PS2 to PS3 wasn't a bad leap, but when PlayStation tried to make their own processor, what was it? The Cell. Yeah, they kind of, and they admitted that when they brought the PS4 out, they went back to, hey, we're gonna let the people who actually make the hardware make the hardware and not screw with them. And,
right.
And I appreciate Sony for trying to make something. They did the same thing when they did the Vita.
Well, they were, yeah.
And the Vita,
well, they went back
proprietary
to
software or proprietary hardware, and nobody it failed because of that. But they
right. Well, now, yeah. Well, that was one of the big selling points for the PS4 early on, especially when they announced it at E3. Mm-hmm. What was that in E3 2012?
Right.
Was that it was going back to a PC architecture, the x86,
right. Mm-hmm.
And I remember the crowd went ape shit. So,
right.
I don't worry too much about that kind of stuff. I just want powerful hardware and awesome software.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're going with the 360.
Based on that, yeah, I
Okay.
would go that. I mean, especially because Xbox has always been backwards compatible. I mean,
Right.
and don't even get me started with PlayStation and backwards compatibility.
Yeah. Well, we know why they're not, and that's another podcast for another time.
Jeez.
I'm gonna agree with you,
Mhm.
at least on the greatest of all time in terms of technical prowess.
Sure.
And kind of piggybacking off of its predecessor,
Mhm.
the 360 is like, I think the one of the probably the most important console
Okay.
in terms using that criteria.
Sure.
Because it took what the Xbox Live was there on the original Xbox,
Mhm.
but it was people were still on dial-up at the time, and it was slow.
Yeah, everybody was using AOL still.
Right, and I didn't even know what Xbox Live was until I got a 360.
Right.
I remember I had borrowed your Xbox for like a year and a half.
Yep.
To play Coder 1 and 2, and then I played a bunch like Halo 1 and 2 and stuff like
Sure.
that, and played online. But I never knew what I knew what Xbox Live was in terms of, hey, I can turn Halo 2 on and play with other people, but I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know there was an actual store there. A place to to look, or I didn't even know how to connect. I just
Right.
So when the 360 when I pulled that 360 out of the box,
Mhm.
hooked it up to my TV, it was like, and I turned it on. I thought, man, it was easy to use.
Mhm.
The UI was attractive.
Right.
Like, it was simple, and it was the efficiency was like through the roof for me.
Sure.
So it took everything the original Xbox did, or Microsoft took everything from the original Xbox, put it in a more powerful box, and then added a bunch of new shit to it, and and it fucking exploded. It blew up. It blew the PS3 out of the water. I know a lot of people talk about, it was the pricing of the PS3.
Sure.
If a console's fucking awesome, people will pay whatever it costs.
Right.
I mean, I've seen it. Shit, you see it now in the PC crowd. People go and buy huge. They go Alienware PCs and God boxes, and
Sure.
even the mediocre gaming PCs are powerful and cost several $100s.
Right.
So it's not like and those people are more dedicated than you and I are in terms of hardware, because we upgrade once a generation.
Right.
Unless one of our consoles breaks or something, they upgrade every few months or every year. They're out buying more RAM, new computer, better graphics processor, always putting something in the box. So, I think Xbox 360 took everything that was right about the original Xbox, not only included it, but made it better, and then added a heap of new shit on top of it.
Sure.
And it did everything right. That Microsoft hit all the right points at the right time. Now, for my runner-up console, kind of for the same reasons, the Xbox I think is the best console of all time in terms of what it did, or what it meant to games, what it brought to the table.
Sure.
The SNES.
Okay.
Because
sure.
it ran with the NES's steam, and popularity. And obviously, in those days, it was just, hey, new graphics, better graphics, let's go, which was cool, and it's still cool. But that was the big selling point. But it added more buttons to the controller, shoulder buttons, 4 buttons for your fingers or your thumb. Had a better D-pad. Everything about it was just better.
Okay.
Had a bit. Obviously, like I said, nostalgia-wise, NES, but set sentimental feelings aside, the SNES, and I enjoyed the hell out of the SNES too.
Sure.
The SNES it was like the NES on steroids. That's how I've always thought of it.
Right.
Or the NES on crack. You know what I mean? Or PCP. It was it was just smashing through brick walls, because it took the NES captured people like us, an audience, the hardest of the hardcore. The kids and even some of the adults at the time that were just like into that kind of thing.
Right.
Like my stepdad was one of those people too. But the SNES and this is what I really like about the SNES and 360 too.
Okay.
It appealed to a mass market without ever pandering to the lowest common denominator or pandering to people who didn't play games.
Sure.
It was just, both of them are just these awesome gaming machines that came like smashing out of the starting gate upon release, and
Okay.
with with good libraries, a lot of hype, a lot of stuff within the launch window, and they were decently priced. The tech was good, the hardware was good, the software libraries were good. I kind of feel like those two consoles. God, I just thought of this, and I'll interject in just a second. But those two consoles, more than any others, changed the industry. They were industry-changing consoles.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And most of it was all good. I mean, yeah, DLC came in with that generation, but
Right.
Everything else. I mean, all the online gaming shit, and even some of the stuff we use on our PCs, like we're doing now, is here because of Xbox. You know what I mean? Like the camera functions and some of the video stuff and all that.
Right.
Kinect sucks. It's dick for gaming, but for other applications, like for what we're doing here, it's great.
Right.
You know what I mean? For things like that, for home applications. And the other console, I don't want to say it's a second runner-up, but to be honest, I can't believe I forgot, was the PS1.
Okay.
Because before the PS1, we had cartridge-based consoles. And the cartridges were like $60-$70 came out, which was ridiculous. But then I think you were there the day Kevin and I saw the PlayStation at work when we were working at Target.
Yeah.
In late '95, and that skating game or that X Games disc was in the console, and we were just blown away by it.
Yeah.
I remember we were like, "Oh my God, what is this? This thing's great!"
Right.
And that just like the 360 and the SNES upended the industry. It took us from cartridges to discs, and from chip tunes to like orchestrated, soundtracks, voice acting, and and cheaper production for the people that were manufacturing.
Sure.
So I don't put the PS2, I don't hold it, or the PS1, I don't hold it in the same esteem as I hold the 360 and the SNES for those qualities. But it's close. Like that one just slipped my mind. I was looking over the questions the last couple of days, and I can't believe I forgot the PS1 because I mean I don't know, I just did. But
it didn't stick out enough.
Okay, so we agree. Yeah, we agree on the 360.
Yep.
And then your runner-up was the PS what?
The
PS2.
PS1 to PS2, yeah.
Okay, and then mine was the SNES.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on.
Okay.
Here's one I've kind of been waiting for because I like to go on rants and I like to bitch and complain. Which console is the most disappointing of all time and why?
The most disappointing of all time?
Yeah.
I mean, I've already kind of mentioned it, and remember my experience with consoles is kind of limited, so I can't go back too far. But I'm kind of disappointed in the Dreamcast only because they only had like 3 games, maybe 4.
No, it actually had a pretty good library, dude.
Okay, well, there was only one that we played. I'll put it to you that way.
No. Well, okay. Hang on. Well, back up. Okay, so we're gonna have to digress here and talk Dreamcast for a couple minutes.
Okay.
Chris Burnett had the Dreamcast.
Yes.
And he got it like right at launch. I remember he told me he went out on $99.99 and got it.
Right.
And it was $300.
Yep.
You and I went out and got it when we found out a line was coming, and because I'm a huge original Phantasy Star fan. Yep. And I know you like it or at least admire what you've seen of it.
Right.
So I got you hyped, and then the hype built and built. And we went out and got it just for that game. I don't think you bought any other games for the Dreamcast. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I didn't. That's the only one I played.
No, I know we ran off to Best Buy the day we got PSO, and we got keyboards. We both bought keyboards. And so did Chris Burnett. But he only logged on once or twice, and then he disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I got a keyboard, but then I got the keyboard controller or whatever. I don't know if
Right.
I don't have it anymore. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not even sure what happened
Keep
to the
talking.
Dreamcast I had. It was
Oh my god, I still have mine.
yeah. Well, remember I moved and I didn't take a lot of my
Right.
stuff with me, and I think a lot of it got sold.
Okay.
You know, which is fine. I'm not blaming anybody for that, or
Right.
you know, yeah, I wasn't there to claim
Excuse
it,
me.
so there was no reason for anybody to hang on to it. But I still got some of my stuff. I've got my GameCube upstairs still, and if I hunted around, I might be able to find a 64 maybe, but the
Wow.
maybe it's a big maybe. But most of the stuff I still have is all PC games because they're easy to hang on to with the discs and stuff. But yeah,
Dune 2000.
huh? Yeah.
Dune
Dune
2000.
2000. Yeah, I know, really.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, and I guess it's only because I only say that because it was the only game that I bought for it. It was the only game I played for it, and it felt like, you know, okay, yeah, I played one game for this console. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, you know, the Cube, where the Cube I played a lot of stuff for. The 64 I played, you know, a lot of games for. Even when I had a Super NES, you know, I had a ton of games for the Super NES.
Killer Instinct.
Yeah, exactly. Super Star Wars, anything. You know what I mean? You know, even the PlayStation and the PS2 and the PS3. I mean that when I traded my Xbox 360 for the PS3. I mean, I had a massive. You know, I took like 10 or 15, and I know most people are going to say, well, that's not that many, you know what I mean? But I had like 10 or 12 games for that. For me, that's a lot of games to have just kind of sitting around. I mean, I don't do that
Right.
anymore. Most of the time, if I'm not playing a game anymore, it gets traded now because it's just, it's more my wife appreciates that because she doesn't think I'm, you know, like I have this
Right.
massive library of games and I'm not doing anything with them. But you know, it's you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, as far as disappointments, yeah, that was probably it. Only because I guess I was hoping for more. But you know, you're telling me there was more, and maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, or I was so stuck on one game that I never you know looked around. I never looked around, so to speak.
Right. Well, I played PSO with you and PSO version 2 with you for years on the Dreamcast.
Oh yeah.
But in the first 2 years that I had my Dreamcast from what was that, early 2000, I think we picked it up, until 2002. Yeah. I had there was a game called EGG, or EGG, Elemental Gaming Gears. It was an acronym for something like that. I think that was an awesome.
Yeah, I remember that.
Chris Burnett had it, and then like he wouldn't let me borrow it, so I went and bought my own copy of that. And then of course you remember it on the GameCube, or you remember me playing it on the GameCube. But the Dreamcast had Skies of Arcadia.
Oh, yeah, I never did.
Holy shit! That's, for my money, that's one of the greatest games, or at least greatest RPGs of all time. That game was fucking amazing, even on the Dreamcast.
That is true.
Let's see, what else? I had a couple of Sonic games on there. I had shit. I don't remember. I'd have to. I still have them all somewhere.
You know, I'll give you this one. They did have Soul Calibur on that. I'll give them that. Mm-hmm. They had the original on that one. Although the original
Soul Edge, and then they had
Soul Edge, right? Soul Edge, yeah, that's right. But the original was still Soul Blade, which was
yes.
on PS.
Yep.
That's
no. Don't forget this game, dude. Do you remember Tobal #1?
Yeah.
I had that. Chris Burnett had that. You came over to my pad, and we played that like in between PSO bouts, but. Got the Dreamcast. I mean, it's not a legendary library or anything like that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like the NES. It's not an NES library or something, but you were disappointed. There's some obviously anytime a console that I love doesn't do well,
Right.
there's some, there's a little bit of disappointment. My most disappointing console of all time. I thought and thought and thought about it, and I went back and forth between a couple, or rather a few, and then I settled on the PS4, the newest machine.
Okay.
And I know. We were told that the leap from PS3 to PS4 wasn't going to be huge like PS1 to 2 or PS2 to 3.
Right.
So I expected to, in terms of graphics and sound, but even by 2012 specs, like 8 gigs of RAM, that's piss. I had that in my PC in 2007.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know and I'm not a PC gamer by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not I'm not one of those, PC has this and consoles don't have this. But it's like, I mean, it is what it is. The computers at that time had more than that. I think some of them were running 12.
12.
I remember seeing like the higher end machines, and this is almost 10 years ago. This is like 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago. So it's not just disappointing in terms of, because it's an adequate console, like power wise, but it disappoints there. But the software library is just piss to me. Say it doesn't have any good games or even great games, because it does. But even a lot of the great games on the PS4 that I've enjoyed end up disappointing me as well. Like I'm watching Sawyer play Infamous 1 right now on my PS3. That game, no matter how you play it, takes hours and hours and hours to beat. Infamous Second Son is a fantastic game, but like I can beat. Yeah, and it's a great game.
No,
but
that's Second Son. I have First Light. I never.
Oh, okay.
I never got. Well, that one when it was free.
Yeah, Second Son is a very good game, but like it falls short of the first two, not because of graphics or but because of the campaign is like 6 to 10 hours long depending on how good you are at it. Like $60, and this is what I get. You know what I mean? They cut the First Light stuff was I bet my life, I bet my family that game was originally part of Second Son, and that it was cut out to be sold as DLC.
Absolutely.
And so stuff like that guys, all the DLC, and they're not, Sony's not the only one guilty of it. They all are.
Oh yeah.
But should have been way more powerful. Like the specs that it has were shitty for the time it was released in. I'm like I was honestly, and it's gonna sound like hyperbole, but it's not. I was ready and anxious for the PS5 like 2 years, like about a year ago when the PS4 turned 2. I was like, okay, what? I was like, okay, what's next?
Right.
Like, I don't care what games are coming for the PS4, or what games might come out before it's dead and gone. But like I'm with other consoles, like with the NES and even the SNES, the Sega Master System, even the Dreamcast and PS2. Right. I remember, as gamers, we always kind of fantasize and conceptualize. Oh, what's the next console going to do? What's it going to be like? What's it going to look like? What's it going to cost? Like kids at Christmas. What's in the box?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And now, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, what's... But, like, never have I been so ready for the next generation to start as I have since this one started, or at least, like, 2 years into it. I mean, it's a good PS4 is not a bad console. So I know a lot of people might listen to this and go, oh, PS4 sucks. What the fuck is he talking about? I'm not saying that. It's a good console, but it's not great, and it's certainly not, like, no matter how long I live or don't live, I'm never going to look back and go, man, I really miss the PS4.
Right.
I miss the PS2. I miss the PS1. Sometimes I miss the PS3, but I still have it hooked up because I still play it.
I have mine too still. If I ever wanna, I gotta find Ninja Gaiden for it. I still love that game.
Yes. Oh, dude,
Sometimes
those are great. There's a couple of games on the 360 that I enjoyed the hell out of.
Yeah.
Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2. Those were awesome. Or Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. And all those man gamers today. And I'm sorry to digress again, but it's too hard. It's too hard. These games are too hard. And then all the data they
play Ninho.
Since consoles are all permanently online now, we don't study our data. Nobody's finishing their games. Well, maybe your games fucking suck. Maybe it's not the gamers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe because your campaign's 3 hours long and it's so ridiculously boring and overly difficult, and then they know that it's been cut up into 20 DLC pieces for $30 each.
Right.
Destiny. Sorry. Stuff like that. But the PS4 just disappoints me. I can't comment really on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Because I don't have one. If the Scorpio turns out to be an Xbox One, and this is a huge qualifier for me, and the Xbox 4 or whatever they're going to call the next generation, true next Xbox, isn't coming for at least 3 years, I'm going to pick up a Scorpio because I like what I've seen and what I've heard from Microsoft on that. And there's plenty of games that I like. I love Gears and all that, so I can do that again. But until I pick it up, I can't say it's a disappointing console. Right. I mean, it was it was the sales pitch for it was disappointing enough for me to go, hey, fuck you, Microsoft. I don't need your bullshit. I don't need your crap. I don't care about I don't need a DVR in my. I don't. I'm not gonna. I don't want to be online all the time. Yada yada yada, on and on. But yeah, for me, it's the PS4, and I really don't have a runner-up there. The PS4 is just like, okay, nice, great. What's next? Like, I usually feel that way. After the E3 comes and goes, where they unveil the next machine. It doesn't matter whether it's Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo or whomever. I see that and I go, oh my god! It's like when you go and look at it. You go watch a 4K in Best Buy, and then go home and watch your TV in 1080, and tell me you do. I've done it. Yeah. Which is why I have a 4K. But when it's just like internet. When you go from dial-up to broadband, and then when you go from 10 down and 1 up to 100 down and 10 up. Right. Whoa, shit! And then you got to go back. You go back home and you're like, oh, I'm on my 10 down, 1 up again. It was great until I went and saw something better. Right. Yeah, but the PS4 hit me with that right out of the gate. The library is, God, when we brought it home, that night I brought it home, I had Resogun, and that was it. There was nothing. The games, the 5 or 6 games on the PlayStation 4 store were just garbage. Fucking garbage. What
did we get first for that? I don't even remember. I know there's Resogun, but
I got Resogun.
I can't remember the first game I got for that now.
The first major release I got for it was
that Destiny?
No. It was Infamous, and that held me over until some of the smaller titles started popping up on
right, because it didn't come out the first year. Yeah, nothing came out for it the first year.
Right. Well, Destiny was delayed, and then it still came out way too early.
Yeah, oh God.
So, in my opinion,
let's not talk about that right now.
We can do a whole Destiny a 6-hour podcast on that another time.
Yeah. It's not.
But yeah, so for me, it's the PS4, hands down. Like I said, and just to reiterate, I'm not saying the PS4 is a lousy console. Right. Because I don't think it is, but it fucking compared to all the other PlayStations, it fucking sucks. Well, the library, and talk about. Wait a minute. I gotta go on a quick rant here. These fucking DualShock 4 controllers, these plastic pieces of shit, dude.
Oh yeah, they the worst controller ever. Worst controller ever.
The only thing they got right, two things they got right on that controller, which I really,
It needs to stop breaking. It just needs to stop breaking.
Right. Well, the one thing I do like is the mouse pad, the thumb pad.
Yeah.
There you use it like a mouse, which I usually don't. You know, that's kind of crappy.
Nobody takes advantage of it.
Right. But when they did take advantage of it, I actually enjoyed it. I thought, well, it wasn't gimmicky like a Nintendo or a PlayStation Move or a Kinect. It was just, it had a specific use, and it replaced. It was fun. They could have just put a 6th or 7th button on the face of the controller and been done with it.
Right.
It is, even when you're not swiping, you can use it as a quick, map. You pull up your map, or you switch weapons,
right.
or you do. I like that, and I like they fixed the L2 and the R2 shit on the DualShock 1, 2, and 3. I hated that. Where you press,
you had to press or press half or press.
Like touch sensitive. It was garbage. But other than that, you're right. They break. The thumbsticks are too far apart.
Not even that.
They're not comfortable.
If you are playing a game where you constantly have to run, i.e., any kind of shooter, that left thumbstick's gone.
Break.
It's toast.
Yep.
And I even looked it up. There's a little plastic piece in it that breaks, and
I remember reading that too. It doesn't withstand the stress of being repeatedly pushed or pushed hard
or pushed for a constant amount of time.
Right. Luckily, I've had my PS4. The first one I lost. I still have. But the left thumbstick blew out when I started playing Destiny. Yep. But even before that, the pads on the two thumbsticks fucking started peeling off and chipping. Oh yeah. And then underneath it's all slippery.
My first one, the thumbstick's just gone. It doesn't even. You can't even use the controller anymore.
And the controllers are the plastic is cheap. Like they're poorly made. Like Man, when I hold on to a DualShock 1, even an original DualShock,
dude, I still have
the 2, and I still have
the original controllers for both of those systems are fine. Mm-hmm. My PS2's controller works fine. Original controller, it's gunky, but that's my own fault because you eat and then you play with your controller. You use the controller and you get it gunky. You know what I mean? That's my fault. But the controller itself is still in one piece. I could probably chuck it against a wall and it would still work.
Yeah.
I mean, the PS4 I'd chuck against the wall and I'd have to go out and spend $60 to replace it because it ain't lasting after that.
Right. Well, let me ask you this real quick. Do you put PS4? Did you buy those?
No, I didn't. I didn't get those.
You should. They're $5, dude. And you get either packs of 2 or 3 for $5. Like I have them on my DualShock 3s and on my DualShock 4, and it's actually preserved the second controller that I have.
Yeah.
That I've been using for the last 2 years now.
Well, I still have the same one. Because I couldn't afford. Right. Well, not that I couldn't afford to go out. I didn't want to go out and have to get a third one because I'd had just been like, okay, I'm done. But
right, yeah. So let's move on. I don't want to dwell too long on everything, and I'm not real good at segues. So let me open my notes here. Okay, perfect. Actually, the last topic was a perfect segue into this topic. What is your opinion of the current generation of consoles?
Well, I mean, I think I don't think it's a bad generation.
No, not at all.
It's a good generation, but the real problem is Live and Plus. They need to step up and support the games instead of all this TV and app crap. Now, granted, some of the apps are good. I enjoy having Hulu, Netflix, and all of that stuff on my console. I think it's a great idea. But the music and all this other stuff, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who like the music, so I don't want to get into which apps are right, which apps are wrong. Um, but I just think that they're concentrating too much on that, on the social aspects, which is great. I get what they're doing,
Sure.
but it's not what I buy a PS4 or an Xbox for. I buy it to play games, not as Facebook.
Right. Well,
You know what I
and
mean?
that's the thing. When
Uh-huh.
oh, go ahead.
Well, and I mean it. I mean, Xbox One overdid it. They way overdid it with their social things, and I think they realized that when they're bringing out the Slim and well, not the Slim, but the Scorpio. I think that
Right.
they're gonna realize, okay, we screwed up. We should have concentrated on our core gamer base and not try to do this other stuff. Um, and the PlayStation, they fell short because PlayStation Now, I really think is a great idea, but the way they executed it was just bad. I mean, you're
Crap.
talking $100 for a 12-month subscription to rent games,
On top
and
of your PS
on
Plus.
top of your PS Plus. What they should have done, and I still think they should have done, is they should have just set up a larger store to say, hey, you want to play Ninja Gaiden on your PS4? Okay, pay us $5 and you've got Ninja Gaiden on your PS4 whenever you want and be done with it.
Right.
Or even, I'd even say $10. I mean, even $10 a game. You know what I mean? You could price the games and just say, okay, you can't own a physical copy, but you can stream it. You know, you don't even download it. You can stream it down off of our, thing for $5. And I understand that the whole streaming part and the reason they charge the way they do is that they need to maintain the servers and yada yada yada.
Right.
But if you look at it this way, they're raising the price of Xbox or of PS Plus by $10 in a month. In September.
Right.
Okay, so I get it. Server costs go up. This goes up. That goes up. But I think what they need to do is they need to say, okay, we charged you an extra $10. Now we're going to go ahead and show you why. Because now instead of having PS Now be a subscription base, which I don't think they'll get away from, because obviously enough people are paying into this that
Right.
they're keeping it.
Right.
And I get it. They got everybody who had GameFly and this, that, and the other are all doing that, but they need to look at what Xbox is doing with their backwards compatibility and how they're saying, hey, look, if you own any Xbox game, you're going to be able to play it on your next system. Period. You own a copy of this game, you will be able to play it for the rest. You won't. You can, and it's a great idea because now no one has a reason to not upgrade. You know what I mean? It's like you used to have to go, well, I don't want to get that because I can't play all my old games on it. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that Microsoft did and said, hey, we're going to make something out of this and make all our games backwards compatible. You can download whatever. I don't know how that works exactly because I don't have any of that. But if I'm able, if I'm able to go and let's say I get a Scorpio, or whatever it's going to be called, and I log in, and then it suddenly goes back through my game history and says, "Hey, you owned all of these games. Do you want to download any of these right now and replay them?" I will be super stoked. Like you have no idea. I will tell Sony, "Hey, sorry, I just picked up the entire library of games that I've ever owned in my entire life." And there's no reason for me to switch back, you know what I mean, except for maybe exclusive, for some exclusives. I know I'm not gonna go digress too much, but I know I'm really enjoying the Ninho beta right now, and if you're not playing that, then I feel really bad for you because you're missing out on a great game. But that's my commercial for that. Otherwise, I don't see myself going and getting anything else at this point. I really see myself gravitating back to Xbox, especially because they've been talking about the whole compatibility thing and being able to play anything that you ever owned. And I think that's going to be really what brings people back to Xbox and back to that. So if PlayStation doesn't look into what they're doing and says, hey, maybe we need to figure out a better way of making this backwards compatible, I think they're going to lose. They're going to lose big. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with the current gen right now. It's not a bad gen. it's not it's not this, it's not that, but they really just went overboard. Like, Xbox and Sony were trying to outdo each other, and it was this huge, like, it was really bad this time around. Like you could see it with the PS3 and the Xbox 360. They weren't really concerned with each other too much. I mean, yeah, they had their own core bases, their own core audiences, but this last one, they went after each other big time, and I think they ended up hurting each other, or they ended up hurting themselves more, just because of the social aspects. Yeah, they did a lot of great stuff, but PlayStation really only added party chat. They did some stuff to their store, they added some apps, but really the big thing they added was party chat. And Xbox Live already had that. The only reason that anybody got the PS4 was because they advertised all these great games and all of this and all of that and blah 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 blah, and it just didn't happen.
Okay, so I understand your position, and I agree with you for the most part. I think it's an average generation. I don't think it's good. Would be I think if I had to give it a letter grade, I'd give it like a C minus.
Okay.
It's still passing. It's still good.
Mm-hmm.
There's some great things about it. But I kind of feel like it's a segue generation, or it's a stepping stone generation.
Okay.
Not only is it disappointing me for those reasons, but with the way DLC's handled now.
I don't know if you can blame the consoles for that, though.
No, but they encourage it because I know that they require DLC before they publish a game on their console. But it's not just that; it's the longer development cycles for games. And I think some of my disappointment might actually come from the previous generation or cycle being so as long as it was. You know what I mean? It's 7-8 year bullshit. It was like, oh, longer. We're waiting 2 or 3 years longer. So here it comes. The big punch, and then it was just instead of a bomb, it was just,
what? You're breaking up pretty bad, man.
Firecracker. Okay, well, it's adequate. It's nice. I can the library of games. I had a Wii U. I had a Wii U for a number of years.
Okay.
Almost 3 years, and we sold that at the end of last summer just because I kind of felt bad about selling it. But I mean, that thing's the biggest pile of shit, the biggest ripoff, like in the history of video games. I mean, it's garbage.
Right.
And Nintendo's my favorite company when they do things right.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up with them, so it's like that's not coming from a hater. It's the truth. It's a big white plastic underpowered piece of shit. But yeah, this generation I'm hoping ends sooner rather than later.
Right.
I'm ready for the next thing, and I hope to God that it's. I'm not expecting it to be a big leap like they used to be prior to this generation, but I'm hoping that it's more. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of words I could use. I hope it's more enticing. Like when they show it off, it's not like, well, okay, that looks like the PS3. You know what I mean? With a little bit in 1080 instead of 720. I mean, they're talking with the Neo and the Scorpio. The Scorpios, I think, is a little bit different than the Neo. But Sony's talking. Oh, here comes the Neo, 4K gaming and VR ready. Well, fuck, your PS4 can't even do 1080p, 60 frames a second all the time, and now you want to get into 4K gaming in the middle of a generation? Are you kidding me?